So we're welcoming everybody to the April 7th commission meeting. And we will take care of a short bit of regular business here. And if I could please just have our, we are welcoming Secretary Grumbles, but if our commissioners would just identify themselves as being here and introducing yourself to the recording and the public, I would appreciate that. Cliff, let's start with you. Go to Anna, Barbara, Angela, and then we can figure out as we go forward.
Morning, Mr. Secretary. Clifford Mitchell, Maryland Department of Health, Environmental Health Bureau, representing the department.
Good morning, Anna Davis. I am the Commissioner, Child Advocate Commissioner. Nice to be with you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Moore, pediatric nurse practitioner and director for the lead poisoning program at Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, and happy to be here.
Adam or Paul?
Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Rogers. I'm the representative from the Maryland chapter of American Academy of Pediatrics.
Adam Skolnick. I'm the executive director for the Maryland Multi-Housing Association.
Camille?
Good morning. I'm Sue Kleinhammer. I'm the representative for the lead hazard identification profession.
Great. Welcome.
Good morning, Camille Burke, Director of the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program, Baltimore City Health Department.
I see we have Benita.
Good morning. I'm Benita Cooper, representing the Maryland Insurance Administration.
Okay. Anybody else that we have missed?
Hi, I'm Dawn Joy with AMA Training.
Great. Thank you.
Next one, Mary Beth Haller, representative for local government.
And Paula Montgomery, representative for Maryland Department of the Environment. Welcome, everyone.
Great.
Mangela Paul from Maryland State Department of Education, Office of Child Care. I'm the nurse consultant, nurse practitioner here. Thank you.
And just to reiterate, when I called on the phone, I'm Jack Daniels. I am the representative and commission member for the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development.
Fantastic. Do we have any other commissioners present that we've missed? Okay.
This Jacob Benzaquin. Jacob, you there?
Yeah, hi, I'm here. Good morning, Jacob Benzaquin, lead commissioner. Honored to be here this morning.
Fantastic. Great. Welcome, Jacob. Right. If we could please move to the approval of the March 22nd or March 22 minutes. If there's any comments or questions, I know the commissioners received them prior. Any comments or questions on the? Yes, Barbara.
I have one correction. I was present at the meeting.
That's an important one. Thank you. I think, Paula, we got that right. And any other comments or questions on the minutes from last month? Bearing none, if we could have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion approved is amended.
And a second?
Second.
Second.
Great. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. I think it passes. Any opposed or abstaining? Fantastic. Thank you for that. I know we are, is Geraldine Day on the line? Do we know?
She is still having some technical difficulties. Y'all keep going, and I'm working those out as we speak.
Okay. Well, she can call in for certain, for sure.
That's what I'm working on right now.
Fantastic. And Mr. Secretary, do you have any comments you want to share, or are you here as observer?
I'm an observer, but I rarely pass up the opportunity to say something. So on Monday, I was with the administrator of EPA and most of his leadership. The environmental secretaries are among the 50 states. And this was a meeting in North Carolina, and there was tremendous discussion about environmental justice and the bipartisan infrastructure law and so many of the important new provisions and billions of dollars for lead in drinking water. And so I've mentioned to everyone that our lead commission is increasingly focusing not just on other important sources of lead poisoning, but also using these funds, this once in a generation opportunity to use clean water SRF and drinking water SRF state revolving fund dollars for lead service line and replacement and also other fixtures, whether in schools or public buildings, reducing the exposure to lead through drinking water. So I'm just want to emphasize that for us in Maryland, I think this is and for members of the commission, we need your leadership to help steer the ship on investing wisely and rapidly in lead plumbing, lead fixture, lead service line replacement, using these dollars that MDE will help to oversee. Thanks, Ruth Ann.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Two things. I would love to reach out to EPA. Next month, we are going to have a presentation on water and really focus on lead and water on next month's agenda. And I would love to have somebody from EPA's Office of Water join us. So I would think the commission would appreciate your suggestion on who that should be. And as we get our updates, money should be flowing at that point in time, no pun intended, on this, and looking at how do we build a dashboard that I think would be important for the state on the performance of those dollars, where they're going. So we would take certainly a suggestion on that agenda. So maybe I could work with your office.
Yeah, and just let the minutes reflect that Wendy Wilkes and Andrew Sawyers are the two people in the Office of Water under the assistant administrator. And Andrew, of course, many of you know, used to be an MDE employee and is now heads up one of the Office of Water components. He's more the clean water, but they're getting funding too, and the drinking water, Wendy Wilkes. So thank you. Jeff Fretwell will help me follow up on this with you.
Well, that would be wonderful.
Colleagues.
I'd love to have Jeff join us next month as well. And so I will also extend invitations and through and with you, maybe to both of them. That would be great. Does anybody on the commission just have any comment or question for the secretary while he does have time with us this morning? I think we are good on that. So we're gonna move on with our agenda, unless I saw a hand there. Paula, just let me know.
Ruth Ann?
Yes.
Ruth Ann, I think Jack had his hand up.
Okay, Jack, thank you.
I apologize. My hand was up because I wanted to make sure that I didn't know if we needed to make sure when we were agreeing to the minutes that my vote was there. I didn't know how we were setting it up since we're not in person.
All right. Well, it's good to know. And we appreciate that too, Jack. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Secretary, for taking that time. I do think I will say, given the bipartisan infrastructure money that's coming, and I know Jack's going to present for DHCD, in many areas, the state has got to be prepared to handle the influx of money and be able to align that with good programs. And I think this is going to be utterly important on our tracking. And I think one of the things the commission should also look at is the annual report and what we report back to the governor on. I'm not sure if we need any kind of formal approval to do it, but I do think we ought to expand the annual report on lead to include water. I'd like to work with the department on that. I know we have some statute guidelines on some of it, but I don't think there's any preclusion from expanding that piece. And I would like to make sure that we start to put that into our annual report.
Ruth Ann, if I could interrupt, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Secretary Dumbles, for the information. I would like for us to consider childcare facilities also. You mentioned about the public water system and the school system, the early education program, especially the licensed childcare facilities, the centers and home. They do not fall under public facilities. They are private owners, small self-business. And we have more than 250,000 children getting early education and growth and development in these facilities for more than 3-4 years in that water. So I like for us, I'm humbly requesting whether we could allot some monies or grants to the childcare providers to get the water, drinking water tested, including the faucets and other fixtures, and also to help them to some money funding available for mitigation purposes, for abatement services also. We have been, like past 3 years, it has been on the agenda, but we didn't really go anywhere because we didn't find monies. So I would like for us to be considering this, since we are getting these billions of dollars and especially investing on young children who are in these childcare facilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I would, if the commission agrees, that I would, and Cliff, I see your hand, that we may do, if everyone agrees to do it, is I can certainly deploy resources to amend the asset and gap analysis report to also include water. That will give us a way to look at, Mandela, a way that we can fund things such as childcare fixtures, et cetera, how the funds are set up to flow, where they may go, where there are gaps that we would have to look on that. But I think in addition to the report and that tracking, that having that asset and gap analysis on the water resources might be good. And we will proceed to do that unless there's objection, and be able to present that to the commission, certainly, I think, either by the June meeting or the September meeting. Cliff, you had your hand up, I thought.
Yeah, so the secretary, since he was on the witness stand, gave me an opening to do a cross, and I wouldn't have done so unless he had opened the door to that. So
I'm not sure what law school he went to, Mr. Secretary, but we'll let him see what he can do here.
I can't hear Cliff. The audio is bad. I don't know what he's referring to.
Right. But I do think, Ruth Ann, that this is one opportunity, and I think Manjula also referred to it, but you and I have spoken about the idea of getting the Children's Environmental Health and Protection Advisory Council and the Commission on Environmental Justice together. And I think this represents an opportunity for us to think systematically about a subject we've talked about before, which is the idea of housing and the relationship between housing and health. And I think this is one aspect of that. But given the statewide integrated health improvement strategy, which is focusing on housing and asthma, this focus on housing and lead, I think.
It was brilliant, but he just froze. Cliff, if you can hear us, Mr. Secretary, what we had been talking about is having a joint convening during National Healthy Homes Month, which is in June, of these commissions, and to align in the mission, the tracking and the information. I know that the commission that Camille Burke already has a public meeting set up in June, but I think we are looking to have the Secretaries of Health, Housing, the Environment, and any others that you think maybe to sign off on a joint convening that gives us the ability to really set a strong agenda, not only for tracking, advocating, but ensuring that we are supporting local government in this, and how the public can benefit. So I think that is where Cliff was going, and know that we're working pretty quickly to try to bring this idea together.
Great. That sounds good.
Yep.
The important points converge.
Yeah, and I think there's so much overlap here, and on the other side of things, there's overlap on some of the housing and energy resources, and I think we're going to try to look at both of these on an integrated basis and how they impact Maryland citizens. So,
Right.
looking at that, and so Cliff, I don't think he's back, and I don't think we have Gerald.
Yeah.
Oh, you are back. Okay, go ahead.
I apologize. I assume that was the secretary who cut me off.
Well, it just proved that you trying to be Clarence Darrow failed, but we'll forget that for a second.
Exactly. Anyhow, I think so. My only point was this would be a good opportunity to engage in that larger conversation, and I certainly think we could contribute to it.
Yeah. Good. Agree.
Thank you all for that, and we're going to move forward on to the next area. Adam and Anna, I know we want to discuss the updates on legislative initiatives, and Paula West Stewart did have a chart in case people needed to know status, but Adam or Anna, do you want to take up the status of things that the subcommittee was tracking?
Anna, you want me to do it?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay. So House Bill 101, Sandy Rosenberg's bill to require lead compliance, and when you file a failure to pay rent case, never got out of committee, but positively, House Bill 174, which was Delegate Lehman's bill, did include that in her bill, and that bill has passed the House. It's over in the Senate. It's going to get voted on in JPR today. The real question, and Paul, I saw that Kaylee isn't on the call. One of the most reputable lead-free landlords, biggest in the city, had a community that didn't show up properly. So they've started getting very nervous that the database isn't actually functioning as it's supposed to. So I don't know what to say to them. So they're very nervous, and they're having, I mean, MMHA is still in the same place. We're staying moot on the bill. We understand it's good policy and we're good with it. It's just a matter of when should the bill take effect to give the department a little bit more time to potentially make sure that that database is tight. Question.
Adam, I will say one thing from Senator Hedelman. She is not under the impression that MMHA is staying out of the bill, so I'm happy to discuss that offline. But she called.
Here's what we are still in favor of the bill. What we've been, and we've told that reputable landlord who's large, 5,000 units in Baltimore City, that MMHA is standing down. And that landlord is going to take up the mantle of having the conversation. But they're not opposed to the bill. They're not trying to beat it. They're just trying to pause the effective date to potentially give the department more time. If the department says this database is tight, I mean, the invariable problem was they tested one of their communities and it didn't show up as being lead-free. And the community is lead-free.
Sorry. Can I speak? Can I speak?
Go ahead, Paula.
Sorry. So just to let you all know that the legacy data that was transferred over to the new database, if they search by certificate number, that certificate should be in there. The issue starts to happen when people enter addresses, and particularly for larger complexes, where the certificate doesn't match the certificate that's in the database. A lot of times these larger complexes, they did not use the actual street address. They would use the address for the management company. So I'm going to let Shantae kind of hit on that as well.
Thank you, Paula. And Shantae, thank you for using the hand function. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to address this matter because we researched it, and I just wanted to let Adam know that this wasn't a particular database issue. When we looked at the certificate that you questioned, it is that the third-party inspector did not follow protocol and issue the certificate correctly. They, instead of using the SDAT premise address, they wrote down Garden Village Townhomes 545, which was completely incorrect. So that's why it wasn't searchable. What we will do, we will reach out to the inspector to see if they could submit a Form F, which is a correction form, to provide the necessary information for us to go into LRCA to make the correction so that certificate will show. But as Paula mentioned, what happens with a lot of these legacy certificates that was handwritten, a lot of the third-party community did not follow protocol to use the SDAT premise address, which will then correlate with a specific parcel, and then will allow for the certificate to show. So we're trying to remedy this matter to see if we can correct it, but unfortunately, what will happen is these situations probably will occur in order for it to bring to light, because there's thousands of certificates. We hold and host webinars, particularly on this matter and regarding, you know, how to issue a certificate, but it's still a problem. So what we will do, and we were talking internally to host another webinar on this particular matter, in addition to other common things that we're seeing that individuals are not using the database properly. And that's really is what tended to some of these issues, user error. So I just wanted to kind of speak on that and provide additional information.
Shante, that was absolutely the best explanation that I've heard in the last 48 hours. And I think I did speak with Kaylee to have MDE's representative please update both Senator Hettleman and Senator Smith. And I think that's quite critical. I think it's Tyler Abbott to be in touch on that before the vote today, just to be clear, because Senator Hettleman had reached out to me as chair of the commission just to see what we could do about getting information over. I just asked MDE to please try to communicate with those two senators. I do see a hand from Jacob. Jacob, could you please go ahead?
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much. This conversation is really very eye-opening, and I appreciate everybody's input here. As a small management company in Baltimore City, I think it's very helpful seeing some of these back and forths and understanding a little bit about what happens in the background. I think your average landlord of Baltimore City, and might not reflect necessarily the larger ones that Adam's referring to, aren't educated enough about the process and what's happening in MDE, and an issue like this one in terms of we're lead free, but we can't find ourselves in the database, can become a cumbersome and dark, deep hole that a lot of times landlords, smaller landlords, will just kind of put their hands up and kind of shrug it off and say, well, the whole system's broken. And I would say that it's imperative to be able to have a way to communicate with MDE where it's not necessarily, hey, I need to know Adam from the MMHA in order to get somebody through to the MDE. I think your average landlord would want to be able to communicate with that. If I could suggest, I think a lot of landlords do look for either websites or social media to be able to communicate with people. I don't know how much MD has done in the sense of having a social media presence and being able to maybe use that as a way for landlords to troubleshoot and be able to become better educated. I think in 2022, as much as I hate what social media is doing to people and certainly to my children, I think it's an important tool that can be used, and it's just one that I would suggest, I think could be something that MD should look into. It's just my 2 cents, but thank you.
Really fantastic suggestions, and thank you, Jacob. You might want to take your hand down off the thing just so we know. But Shante or Paula, one of the things I might suggest is that we do a couple of public webinars and do some key webinars that would be up on recording as well on how to access the database properly, ways to do that are training tools. And I know that my organization, I'm sure MMHA as well, would and others would work together, that maybe we could do some recordings on that. And I think, Jacob, one of the things might be something that we ought to look at is working with the state to create an app that would be helpful for that in the field people could do. So let's talk further offline about that. Paul, I see your hand up, and then I know we want to get through these bills and then to our special presentation.
Right. I certainly think that the department, would consider this moving forward once the database is completely live. There is a way for the public to access it currently on our website, and I'd be happy to share that with everybody. Thank you.
Is there a date for completely live as you're referring to it?
Well, it is live right now. Shantae, do you want to just hit on that a little bit?
It's completely live. The rollout date was December the 6th.
That's what I thought.
2021. So it's completely live. Now, when we did roll it out, which you all are aware of, there was some issues pertaining to certificates not being found, but that was just due to some of the back end logic. And we had to remove some of the logic from the legacy certificates in order for them to show. So everything is showing. It's just the issues where the third party inspector did not write it out accordingly. There will be issues trying to search for that certificate. Now we have them in our database, in addition to an application called DocuWare, which we use internally to store the actual certificate along with any appendixes and supplemental forms. So we have it. It's just that if we get into the issue where the inspector did not issue it based on the premise address, then we will have to be contacted because it will take some internal staff in order to look into the matter.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Shantae, real quick, Shantae, are you available? I mean, I am happy, Ruth Ann, to have, the management company that's got a concern talk to Shantae to try and get them to stand down. I'm happy to do
I
that.
think that'd be great, and needs to happen within hours because the vote is at 1 o'clock. I think, Adam, if you would, for the benefit of people watching this recording and maybe of any of the commissioners, just quickly say what this bill does.
The bill, I mean, in terms of the lead commission, the bill allows for the lead status to be used as a affirmative defense in our failure to pay rent case throughout the state. So if you're not in proper compliance with the lead laws, an attorney or the tenant bring that up as a fact in front of a judge. So potentially you could stop a failure to pay rent case if the person's not in compliance. And as we all agree, including the rental property owners agree, i.e. the organization I run, that everybody needs to be in compliance with the lead laws, period, end of discussion. It's not a debate. So that's what this bill does, basically.
Great. Okay. Do you want to give updates on the other bills that?
Sure.
And there may be bills on this chart that are not ones that the committee took up. So just to be clear.
Got it. HB 1033 was. I'll be honest with you. I didn't track this one very closely.
Yeah. So let's go down. 1110.
1110 is in essence, the department's bill that gives them more time when CDC changes the reference level. That's passed and gone on to the governor. The dentist saliva bill failed. 1266 never got out of, the ones that we were looking at, 1266 never got out of committee. And then Ruth Ann, you need to talk about HB 1290 because I don't know anything about that bill.
Yeah, this is under the school construction, and there will be dollars available for lead and water on this and standards including that. So this was supported, I know, by GHHI, and it was sponsored by the Appropriations Chair, Maggie McIntosh, just it providing school construction funding, oversight, and tracking, and will be done with environmental standards. So that is moving forward. And then Senate Bill 563, Adam, is somewhat aligned, but not quite, with House Bill 174. Would you like to say anything on that?
Well, I mean, it really didn't have much to do with lead, right? That was
Except for that they tried to tack it on. I think the amendment was taken off, so it's now not, again, a lead bill, right?
Yeah, actually, and what was interesting is that was at the request of Delegate Lehman, was what I'm told.
Yeah.
I don't really know why, other than maybe she was looking for credit. I have no idea. But
Well, I think it was pulled off, and that 174 is going to stay on its own, right?
correct. Yeah, that's correct. 563 was basically that you have to have a license to be able to use the failure to pay rent case in jurisdictions that require rental licensing, which again is not a bill that we have a whole lot of problem with. But it's really not much of a commission bill.
Okay, I think we're good on this. Anna, did you have anything you wanted to add, or anyone else, before we move on from legislative work?
I don't have anything. No, thanks.
Okay. So we're going to go back, if we can, if you'll allow us, please, to go off agenda for a minute, because we have a special guest with us. And you can take that tracking chart down, Paula, if you get a chance to do that. And maybe the certificate that the secretary and Kaylee and I have prepared. And Camille, I hope you're nearby, and Cliff, but we are, the commission at its last meeting wanted to take a moment to really thank Geraldine Day, who I knew for many years as Geraldine Woodson, who has dedicated her life in her work in the city of Baltimore to trying to protect the lives of children in Baltimore from the ills of lead poisoning. And she has had the audacity, I guess, to say that she will attempt to retire, but maybe like Tom Brady and Tiger Woods, and we're hearing now Mike Krzyzewski maybe rethink the retirement. I'm not sure. I hope Krzyzewski stays where he is, because the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill did beat them, I will say, in the Final Four. But Geraldine, we are so pleased to have you here. I know a number of people want to say really some nice things here. And I'm going to ask our secretary to present this citation, and if you don't mind, Beth.
As long as I don't get cross-examined by Cliff Mitchell,
Well,
I'm happy to do that.
By Camille on this one. So.
No, it's just an honor to be able to recognize and give due thanks and appreciation to someone who's been such a leader. And lifetime service awards are not given out every day, ladies and gentlemen. And so it's a real honor on behalf of the Maryland Department of the Environment, and with Kaylee Lolliker leading our Land and Materials Administration, with you, Madam Chair, to present this certificate as just one piece of paper that signifies a lifetime of public service for doing the right things. So thank you so much, Geraldine.
I don't know that I can see, Jerry, if you're on, if your camera's on or not. But Camille and Mary Beth and Cliff, I wanted to give you an opportunity, or Paula, to say a few words if you'd like, or anyone else.
I will be really brief, and I just asked her to turn on her camera, by the way. I know, I don't know half as much as most people do about lead, and what I do know comes from either Jerry or Yolanda, our other manager. Her passion, I can't even put it into words, and her keeping me on point and in line is definitely something that was absolutely needed. And I came into this as a novice, and I will forever be grateful to Jerry for imparting and sharing all of her knowledge.
Fantastic. Paula or Mary Beth?
I'm happy to go next. I'm very happy for Jerry on the occasion of her retirement. However, I can't help but feel the loss to the program. The integrity that Jerry has shown over the years to the law and her implementation of that in a firm but fair way with property owners has really been a model for others to emulate. Her dedication is beyond compare. And her contributions to the lead program, I mean, she's really like the backbone of it. Being a supervisor for years, guiding the actions of others, always can be counted on for the right answer. Jerry, we are going to miss you terribly. And thank you for all you've done.
Paula, I think you were just a young pup like Jerry when she
Oh my
started.
goodness. Yes. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm much older. I met Jerry when I came to the Baltimore City Health Department in 1993. And I just want to, words cannot, other than Mary Beth and Camille eloquently put, how Jerry has impacted the citizens of Baltimore, in particular the young citizens. She, I heard Mary Beth getting a little choked up about it, and we could all get choked up if we've worked with Jerry, because she took her job to a whole nother level, a level that most of us don't do. And that's all I really have to say. She was a mentor to me in so many ways, professionally and personally. Her heart is as big as the sky, and it was nice to follow in her footsteps because she really did show that this was all about the kids. So I want to thank you, Jerry.
Great. And Cliff, maybe you will be the last word. And I'm still trying to see if we can get Jerry to come on camera, but I'm going to leave that to Captain Camille here.
Yeah, so there's not much to add to what has already been said, except to say that the Department of Health is incredibly grateful to and recognizes the amazing work that Jerry has done over the years. For all the time that I've been at the health department, working with Baltimore City Health Department, the one thing that's been really clear is that whenever there was a referral made to Baltimore City Health Department, we knew that the follow-up was going to be thorough, and we knew that the follow-up was going to be professional, and we knew that whatever it was that was the problem was going to be identified and addressed. And that was true no matter who the mayor was. It was true no matter who the secretary was, either at MDE or the Department of Health. And that's largely because of Jerry and the people who work with her and who have benefited from her experience and collegiality over the years. So thank you, Jerry.
Hello, Jerry. I see you on camera, and I didn't know if you wanted to say anything, but clearly we just wanted to honor someone so humble but so impactful, who really the work ethic and the focus on mission and doing what is right and just and thoughtful, and very much, I think, on behalf of the entire commission, just wanted to acknowledge you and so appreciative of you taking time with us today. And I know this is opening up an entirely new chapter of your life, so watch out, world. But did you want to share any comments with us?
You're muted, Jerry.
She's working on it, I think.
No,
Paula, can you unmute her?
I'm trying. No, I can't. Only she can do it.
Okay.
It's Camille. I'm texting at the same time.
All right. Well, we'll give it one more second here. And thank you for the nice comments for Jerry, Barbara. Appreciate that. Jerry, we do thank you and appreciate you. I don't know that, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to do the unmuting there, but thank you, everyone. And I think it is important. The work gets done in the field, it gets done in the homes of families. And so important that we recognize that work. So thank you for everybody for doing that. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for joining in. So I know we have a calendar reminder for, or actually, Anna, is there anything, I know you were heading up the gap analysis group. Is there anything from the gap analysis that you wanted to raise for the commission? I know I'm suggesting we add lead and water to that.
Were you talking to me, Ruth Ann?
Yes.
No, I was not heading up the gap analysis.
Oh, okay. That was my understanding when I took the transition notes.
Sorry, no.
From the commission side. Okay. Well, if there's no questions on the gap analysis at this point, we'll move to new business. Next month, we are looking for a presentation that the water presentation will come in May and not today, but today we will have a update from Jack Daniels and Shante. You are presenting today as well?
No, it should be next month.
Okay. Yeah, the way this is written is a little confusing. I apologize. We will get that cleaned up. Jack, I know we talked, you were supposed to do last month. Can you give us some updates from DHCD today?
Absolutely, and I apologize for last month. I had a little bit of a health issue, so thank you in kindness to allow me to update today for everyone here. There'll be a lot of information. I'll go ahead probably by the end of the week forward over some of the information. I wanted to kind of first do a sort of snapshot of the existing.
Jack, do you have slides or are you going to do this just verbally?
I'm going to do this verbally and I'll forward everything over to you by the end of the week so that all the commission members and anybody else can have that. I apologize. There's a lot of sort of juggling balls in the plate as much as everybody else has. So the forms haven't been updated, but I do have verbal numbers, and I did want to talk about in detail one specific new initiative that we have that can address emergency repairs, as well as another initiative that we have been moving forward that is also leading to some other things. So first, just to give you some basic information from DHCD, partially with the lead programs that we run, and then partially with the other programs that we do here, which is we, in essence, address essential repairs to help address code, health, safety, building efficiency, accessibility, so age in place. So we do quite a few things, and not just lead abatement. But to address some of the lead abatement programs that we do have, we have our Program 1 through our collaboration with the Maryland Department of Health, as well as the Maryland Department of the Environment, and including the Center for Medicaid Services. So we currently, Snapshot, have approved and obligated 17 projects, currently at the moment of $1.6 million, a little bit more than that. We have another 2 deals that I'm currently working on that will be submitted over to the committee for approval for another a little bit less than $100,000 plus about 6 more deals with our $2.5 million, and minus out the the admin portion of it. We should be at a position to have spent all of the money by June 1st, so about a month before the end of the actual fiscal year, and then we will recycle that same $2.5 million. Will come back into our world, and we would have about additional 6 projects lined up so that we can hit the ball rolling in the first quarter of fiscal year 23. Currently, we have been working with Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development to create sort of an exception process for some of their deals that they have been sort of held waiting for updated documentation, deals that were approved prior to COVID, and with them now sort of getting back into place, roughly around $500,000. We're working with Jim Hicks. We have a meeting set up in roughly 2 weeks to talk about procedures of getting those over to us so that we can get them signed off on and get them those projects sort of back up and running and not waiting for additional documentation. So that's from us a big step to try to, in essence, help them get some of them back. Sometimes we do lose clients because of documentation, so we're trying to make work in that arena to make sure that we can still get them services because they obviously need it, but to be able to do that. I see that you have your hand raised, Ruth.
Yeah, Jack, just on context,
Sure.
the Children's Health Insurance Program, the Medicaid
Yes.
program that you referenced as being $2.5 million, is that a 50-50 split with the federal government and the state, first of all? And secondly, given that the state has a close to $7 billion, I think, surplus, something really quite large, did HCD move to potentially increase the match and draw more CHIP money? If not, why not, or what would it take to do that?
So we were, I think the last conversation that I had with Dr. Mitchell was that we are in sort of discussion of, what that looks like, how we would be able to increase our funds. Obviously, the past 2 years we've been either right at spend out or close to spend out, and the ability for us to be able to move forward to get more money does probably determine a little bit about being able to maximize the money that has been given to us. I don't know the actual percentage. Maybe that portion of the accounting is probably not my strongest suit. I think at one point it was you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was 18%. I know that I think now it's at 32% of what we have to what the state puts in compared to the benefit that we receive through the CHIP funds, but I'll have to circle back and give you the exact number.
Yeah, Cliff, go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah. So let me just explain how that works. The what's called the federal Medicaid match or FMAP rate is 35% state, 65% federal. It started off at 88% federal during the first part of the Affordable Care Act, and that was what we initially had available to us. But it has been decreasing since 2018 down to what it became last year in the federal budget, which is 65-35, and it's going to stay at that unless it's changed by Congress.
Okay, so it's 65-35 now?
Yes.
Okay, and has there been, given the surplus, as the state thought about an increase in this?
That is a discussion that is fortunately so far above my pay grade, and that I am totally ignorant, as I am in so many things. But in this one particular, that would not be a decision made by us. That would be a decision made at a policy level in the secretary's office, the legislature, and the governor's office.
Yeah, so yeah, governor's budget piece, but does either, Jack, does your department or either department says you make recommendations up? I know we talked about ARPA money, but one of the things I would encourage both departments to look at is taking advantage of the opportunity at a time when the state is getting significant money in so many levels at the infrastructure side. And Jack, I hope you're going to talk about potentially the increased weatherization monies and the like that are coming. I would urge both departments, and I would urge the commission to urge the state to be looking at this. I know that we're in a particular position that there will be a different governor next year because Governor Hogan has to leave by statute. But it is something that we are at a point in time that we have a good set of resources there. I don't know if anybody, Jack, I know you have other things to talk about, but I appreciate you and Cliff at least answering the questions on that. And thank you for Cliff for the percentages so that we can be thinking strategically about getting more resources. And I have one other question before you move on from the Medicaid program. As I'm listening to Ms. Paul from the Child Care Administration, are these dollars available to childcare or only to residences? And could the CHIP waiver be expanded to cover childcare issues? Go ahead, Cliff.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, the state plan amendment actually, and the proposal actually did include a reference to childcare for owner-occupied residences, so not commercial childcare, but owner-occupied residences that were serving as childcare. Now, I will say there has been an active discussion because we have tried to avoid situations in which there was a legal requirement for a facility to be in compliance with lead laws as a condition of licensure. So, for example, foster care homes or rental properties that are required to be in compliance with lead laws, we have, and where there is a legal requirement for them to do that, this is not seen as a way to sort of backdoor into compliance. But we recognize there could be some situations where there might be a child care facility situated in an owner-occupied home where that might occur. So I will say that the SPA actually did contemplate that as a possibility. To date, I do not think that we have done any. Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've done any with that.
Yeah, and just to sort of piggyback off that, sorry, Ruth Ann. So yeah, it was addressed in the SPA, similar to our other state program. Child care facilities are included into a possibility. We do them case by case basis, but since we are a single family entity here in special loans, it would have to be, as Dr. Mitchell had stated, is that it would have to be an owner occupied child care facility that's run outside of a home, that they are the owner of the property, and then we could come in and do that. But the caveat to that is if there is any sort of violation, findings, determination, a notice of defect, we would not be able to address that until the property owner was able to come back into compliance. And to be able to come back into compliance, they would be doing the abatement work themselves.
Yeah, I get that. I think my point in this is if there's an opportunity to expand the thinking or through other means, right? There are a number of childcare owners and there are a number of landlords as well who want to be in compliance and do not have the resources to be. They're not always certainly the norm or particular cases, but there are cases of financial hardship that I think we need to be able to provide some sort of assistance or incentive where we can. And it may be just something we need to continue to look for a pathway for, but I appreciate that. Cliff, were you getting ready to say something or?
No, I was just, no, I was not.
Okay. All right. Jack, I'm sorry. I know you wanted to finish on other things that you have.
Yep. So we are moving forward on and at good speed. So there are some still barriers, obviously, due to the sort of the magnitude at times of some of the projects, accommodations, needing to relocate the families to get them out of the hazardous situation does become a challenge, especially not in areas where we have created sort of relationships with property owners, hotels, depending upon the length of stay, to be able to do it. Sometimes that does become a hardship. We have sort of increased that with some additional staff and have had some successes, which is which is promising, so that we can end up getting to the work as quickly as possible. I did want to mention about two programs. One, a little is what we call the Whole Home Homeownership Assistance Fund. Go over some basic information and then give you some stats of kind of where we're at. This is a program that launched for us in January 6th of 2022. So we're just at the 3-month mark. It took a lot of early on program policy placement based upon the eligibility of the funding requirements. The DHCD received $250 million for homeowner assistance fund, primarily for mortgage assistance in regards to getting homeowners who have been impacted by COVID to be able to get them current to pay arrearages, and that arrearages could be anywhere from their mortgage themselves, it could be their taxes, it could be their insurance, it could be their homeowners or condos associations, it could be utilities, and that portion of it takes I would say the majority, actually 95% of the funds. We here in special loans were able to, and Whole Home were able to receive $10 million. And that assistance was obviously, if you weren't able to stay current because of loss of job, reduction of hours, reduction of income, to be able to pay your mortgage. If you had an emergency repair, you're not going to be able to make those repairs as well. So what we were able to do and create the Whole Home Rehab Homeowners Assistance Fund grant. So it is a 100% grant up to $10,000 to be able to address emergency needs. Emergency, the way that we define that, or the way that the funding source defines that through Treasury, is any sort of repair that needs to be completed that would cause involuntary displacement. So, we have a list on our website, and I will go ahead and forward that information out to everybody by the end of the week. But what we're really talking about is items that are mold, mildew, asbestos, no heat, no air, electrical repairs, plumbing, septic repairs, roof repairs, reduction in lead paint hazards, structural and maintenance issues, as well as trip slip issues. So if you don't have access to your house, and you'd be able to also be able to address that. For us, really, there's 3 main requirements. The repair has to come in the form of a proposal from a licensed contractor or a special, so in essence, a specialized professional, meaning if it is an electrical repair that could possibly cause a fire, it would have to come from someone who's properly licensed as an electrician in the state of Maryland. They would have to provide a certificate of liability insurance, as well as that they're in current good standing. So at the time of application, the customer provides income docs. Now, the great thing about the grant and the availability is just we have raised the income limits to 150% county AMI. So many people, if not all, for the most part, will be eligible from an income standpoint. There are some basic limitations, and but from the basic 3 requirements is the fact that you have to meet the 150% AMI. You would have to provide, part of the application is you're attesting that you've had some sort of financial hardship as of January 21st of 2020. That could mean that you are currently back in being employed, but you're still sort of catching up on all your bills and have other issues. So they attest to that piece. And then by supplying the contractor documentation, we have an in-house sort of desk reviewer who's going to review the photos to determine that it's an emergency repair. The property eligibility requirements is that you have to be a primary residence, and you have to have proof of ownership of the property. The main reason and thought process is because the main funding requirement is that this would without addressing the repair, you would be involuntarily displaced. And if it's not your primary residence, you have the possibility of other options to go to a different property. So this is a primary residence. It's not for second homes. It's not for rental properties. It's not a way to address a need just to be able to, in essence, rent your property out.
Jack,
yeah.
can we I want to reiterate, you're going to send slides on these. I know you have one more to cover.
Sure.
That we will share with the commission, and that as we were talking about the registration piece and providing at least a webinar or something that would be recorded that people could distribute or see. I encourage HCD to do this as well, but certainly if you will distribute the slides before you get to the third piece here. I see that Jacob has his hand up, and it's been up for a while. So Jacob.
Thanks a lot. Jack, I'm just wondering, in situations where the families need to be relocated, has DHCD considered, because obviously the ability to relocate a family in a quick manner and in a manner that makes them comfortable during that time of relocation can be very difficult, hotels and all that other stuff. Has DHCD considered actually renting out a number of homes and having them available at all times, homes that are fully furnished, and having those available for these types of situations? And do you have data that would say, hey, on a regular, on a year basis, we're relocating X amount of people, we should have X amount of units available? I'm just curious if that idea has ever been brought up or considered, because I know that relocating people can be a real challenge.
Yep. So thank you for the question. Yes, we definitely in the very beginning were contemplating and seeing the availability of our own REO properties that we had. Right around the same time of the creation for the Healthy Homes for Healthy Kids program, we also launched through the Maryland Mortgage Program. I keep wanting to say Be Smart, but it's Smart Buy program. I apologize, that allowed for individuals, first-time homeowners, to be able to also pay off their student debt as they were coming out of deferment, to be able to do that. The original launch of that program was utilize the REO properties that we had here at the state. Now it has changed so that it could be REO properties that are owned outside of the actual department. One of the issues we had early on, and we're still sort of in that, was we just don't have, from that standpoint, the inventory to be able to utilize that. We did also then, just to follow up, talk about the possibility of utilizing funds to be able to purchase properties to be able to do that. We haven't had a whole lot of traction, and because of the need to move forward on the other transactions, we've sort of, to be honest, have backburnered the conversation just because we're trying to get the current families out so that we could be able to get to the abatement. But I can always take that back and see if that can be opened back up for discussion. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, I'll be happy to discuss with you
Okay, Jack.
offline after the meeting.
Great. Jack, and then you've got a third program you wanted to cover, I think.
Yeah, and just to give quick information on the half, again, we're about 90 days in, but as of the 17th, we received over 1,000 inquiries coming in. We have received at the middle of March 333 applications. About 49 of them at that time were still incomplete, but we have been able to go ahead and encumber 19 deals. We have another 15 deals as of the 13th. I think our number now has just increased a total up to another 25. But what we've looked at in regards to approval and actual obligation and actual work is about under $300,000. So even though there's always sort of moving and shaking in regards to developing a program that, we are at a fast pace. We are receiving roughly 300 inquiries a month, a little bit more than that. And we're receiving at this pace about 5 applications a day. So we have hired staff. They're doing an amazing job keeping up. So from that standpoint, we're sort of moving fast and furious and able to do a lot more quicker than we would used to be able to do based upon the funding source. So with that being said, transition to the last one, and then I'll open up to any sort of additional questions of just initiatives that we're working on. We have another program that we are currently running called the Homeownership Works, or what we call the HOW program. This is a particular funding source that is currently at the moment sort of being used as a pilot with money that has come in two certain or specified areas in Johnston Square in Baltimore City and Pine Street in Cambridge. What the program itself allows is that it's $1.125 million for both areas. That breaks down for us as 15 units of $75,000 to legacy homeowners from our end in the form of a forgivable grant over time. So that we can address a lot. We're also leveraging other weatherization, as well as in some of this half, as well as there was in this pot of money a little bit for facade restoration and improvements. So we're leveraging between that. We do have 2 years in essence to spend that out. In Johnston Square, we already have 3 deals in the hopper that we're currently working on to be able to try to execute or obligate before the end of the fiscal year. And we're working through a participation agreement with the Habitat for Humanity and Shop Tank in the city of Cambridge. We have identified 12 deals already that once the participation agreement is in place, that we'll be able to sort of execute quickly. Of those deals, 5 of them do have lead abatement in them. So we are going to be utilizing this fund to be able to take care of that. Piggybacking off of that, we have actually been in contact with other areas, not necessarily for this particular funding source, but to start opening up outreach and communication to be able to address legacy homeowners in other parts of Baltimore City and other parts of the state. So wanted to just introduce that initiative. I know that Ruth Ann had mentioned previously in a conversation or just now about a significant increase in weatherization dollars that are coming in. Unfortunately, that's not my expertise, but I will be able to circle back with Mike Lafferty. I do know that that amount is pretty significant, so that I can end up getting some numbers and some details on that, and I can share that with the rest of the literature and information that comes, that'll be coming up by the end of the week.
So Jack, I will ask that the department have slides back, and would ask that Mike be available for the June meeting to talk about how the weatherization work will be aligned with other lead efforts, because it does require certain lead standards on that under the infrastructure. And if you'll please make him aware that I'm going to ask him, along with the request I'm about to make to the Maryland Insurance Administration, to be able to report out in June. But I would ask if you could get slides for distribution to the commissioners, and as quickly as with by the end of next week, so that we have those, and would appreciate the future having those up when we present so people can follow. Are there any questions for Jack? And I want to thank you, Jack, for because that's a lot to cover, I know. Is there any questions for Jack before we move on? Okay, so next month we will hear from MDE from the preliminary data for testing. Also, the water folks have asked to present in May. And Jeff Fretwell, I see that you are on the phone, or on, I saw your listing here as a participant, and I would appreciate if in May we could have a full briefing on the building infrastructure dollars as they relate to lead and water, and updates that we will be getting from WSA. If you want to talk about that offline, that's great. But so in the May meeting, we'll have two significant presentations there. And Secretary, I see that you're on. So did you want to say something? Oh, the camera. Okay. I didn't know if the camera coming on. Mary Beth, there is a note here. Thank you, Jeff. There is a note here around the state ARPA review. And before Jack goes away, Jack, did the state find its way on ARPA dollars to find a path at all for ARPA dollars for lead that the commission has discussed?
So the quick answer is no, because of after numerous conversations with them, this particular part of the home funding that's coming out, they advise that the direct relationship is to homelessness, and they've advised through guidance through Charlie in the Baltimore field office that although we pushed hard for justification that obviously people would be forced into homelessness if they could not address the hazard of lead, that they were not agreeing to that. So the answer currently is no. We're still sort of fighting that. There are some other sort of contingencies and requirements before we can actually have an action plan of how to spend those funds currently, but the short answer is no.
Okay. There is a section of the ARPA legislation, particularly around lead. I know we've gone through discussions on that, so I would like to see if we could follow up again on that. And Mary Beth, I see Baltimore City is noted here on the agenda on ARPA, and I know the mayor did put $100 million into vacant housing, some money into healthy housing. I don't know if you are in a position to discuss that, and if not, we can ask the city to be available next month to discuss its ARPA dollars that it's going to expending on lead and healthy housing.
Yes, I'm not in a position to speak on the details around that. The ARPA funding is being handled by a committee, and I'm not privy to those details. But if you want to, provide me the questions or whatever the invite is, I can certainly forward that up through the chain of command as to what it is we're looking to hear about.
Yeah, I think what we will also do is invite Alice Kennedy for May for her to be able to give the portion that's coming out of housing that was in the public on that. So we are going to have Jeff Fretwell and his group and try to get Commissioner Kennedy and of course Shantae Branch for next month. I wanted to, before we move to agency updates, I asked Paula today to distribute the New York Times article that was quite extensive, written by Ellen Gabler on that really focused on the issue of insurance and lead and where there are both problems and opportunities that may be creating. You're right. We need the nurse form. I'll get there in just 1 second, Paula. We did distribute an article from the New York Times that talks about these issues on insurance and insurance barriers and actually perverse incentives, right, or unintended consequences of having lead exclusion in property insurance that causes owners to not come into compliance with lead, and instead the opportunity that many states are looking at to bring insurance standards as a way to incentivizing lead safe standards. So what I would like to ask, Benita, if you're still on the line here, if the Department of Insurance would take a look at this article, be able to give an update in June on the state of property insurance and pollution liability insurance in Maryland, and the exclusions that are allowed by the law, so that the commission can be briefed on that and make recommendations that may the current and next secretary that may want to take a look at, and the current and next governor around this issue, and setting standards that can provide both protection for residents and owners, but also reverse the disincentive to compliance. I don't know if anybody has any questions with that, and I'll offer my team at PHHI to help the Insurance Commission to do that. But Benita, if I could ask you to take that up, I would appreciate it.
Yes, that's fine.
Great. Okay, Paula, the Nurse Forum, do you want to bring me back to where we should be on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Ruth Ann. So I know we're trying two things. I know we're trying to bring people on in June, but and I don't know if you want to make a recommendation to change this, but we do not have a meeting in June.
I keep putting things on the June agenda. I think this year it might be important to do that, given Cliff's recommendation. I'd like to ask if we could do a June meeting because we are going to have a lot more knowledge on what the state's going to be spending, and the ability to bring these commissions together, and maybe we could ask that the things we're asking to be done in June come to that meeting, Cliff, of the intersection of these three committees. So Cliff, you have your hands up on that, and I appreciate that. And you want to comment on that?
I do, and since Camille is still on and has not yet escaped the meeting, I'm perfectly happy to have a partner in crime for this purpose, which is we have had discussions. The Environmental Justice and Sustainable Communities Commission already meets at least once a year with the Children's Environmental Health and Protection Advisory Council. We have previously noted that if you look at these three groups, there is a huge intersection of interest on the part of each of them with respect to children's environment and health, and more specifically recently, the issue of housing and health. And I think that when you look at housing and think of it broadly from the point of view of housing and community design, you think of the health outcomes that are related, which include lead, which include violence and injury, access to green space, access to safe drinking water, and a number of other issues. These are issues that each one of these commissions, and I sit or know people who sit on each one of them, discuss at length and with a huge amount of overlap amongst them. So it just seems to me, given that there are dollars available, given that the state has made the elimination of lead poisoning and through the statewide integrated health improvement strategy, a commitment to housing with respect to asthma, priorities of the departments of health, and in discussions with other departments, strong priorities of those departments as well. It seems like a really good time to put a marker down, as it were, and think about what the state strategy ought to be. with respect to the intersection of housing and health as it relates to these commissions. So that's a modest proposal for, a quick meeting of the three groups.
I concur, absolutely. With Cliff, I shared with Ruth Ann earlier that in June, and we can certainly switch it to July if we have to, part of our charge is to be out in the community, and Curtis Bay is on our radar because they've requested that we come out, and we want to go where we're getting love right now. So we can adjust our schedule if we have to do this meeting. I'm more than happy to do that, to come up with a game plan. And we may want to do some pre-planning with the three of us and the MDE reps before we go to the full commissions, because that's 30, 40 plus people. But I'm happy to do it. Let me know what you want to do and we'll figure it out.
So I think we should, the three of us meet and have some sort of preliminary plan that we circulate quickly to the commission members and try to get this on the books for June. And I'd be willing to work with the members of the lead commission who I think we're intending to be off during that month, maybe trade out December or something to that effect if need be. But I really think this is important that we do it. So if there's no objection, I'm going to just ask Cliff and Camille and myself and the MDE staff that support the commission to meet together and maybe map out this as part of National Healthy Homes Month. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Ruthie, just a quick question. So if we do decide to do that, I'm in the process of emailing Mike Lafferty. He happens to be 4 offices down, but he's in the field right now so that he could speak. Can you just confirm whenever you do make the decision if we are going to go ahead and do June to make sure that I can have him available?
Yeah, I think we're leaning to do June. You've got 3 of our commissioners on here that are pushing this. I think we're leaning to do a joint June meeting. Jack, we will make sure that we circle back on what we want to be in that. Paula, I do want to ask a question here. You have what looks like a commission agenda that is different than what I've gotten from Wendy Phillips up on the screen. And so I just want to make sure that we resolve this. And if it needs to be resolved offline, we can. I do know that we've invited the water folks to talk in May. And according to this agenda, we also have the preliminary testing presentation by Shantae. So what you have up on that agenda, maybe you and Cliff could talk about for a second.
Sorry, yes. So we had been talking about this is the agenda that I drafted in response to the discussion and part of the action items to have the health departments come and sort of have an open forum at one of our commission meetings. If the commission believes that, because of a full agenda, or if Cliff believes because of a full agenda and then our summer break, that this should happen maybe in September, I'm open for that. But I just wanted to share. We were planning on inviting them in May, and it was going to take pretty much the whole entire commission meeting. So,
yeah. Paula, let me, if I can, and Cliff, please comment, because I don't want to take other people into sort of weeds that need to get done offline. I do think that we already had a couple of standing invitations out for May. Cliff, I think you and I can talk about whether or not we can incorporate this into some of that June, incorporate it into May, or move it to September to ensure it gets its full piece. I think what we should say to the commission is that we will be meeting on May 5th, and I'm going to try one more time to encourage people to get together in person, and so it won't be just Cliff and I in a room. But I and that we will continue with the water presentation because that money is going to be coming quite fast, and we are trying to adopt that into our work and to cross that with other commission work, and that we resolve the nurse forum offline if that's possible.
So Ruth Ann, did you want me to comment about
Yeah,
this?
please.
Yeah. So I guess two things. The first is the local health departments continue, especially the ones who are affected by the Maryland Department of Health network outage. They have, it's hard for you all, I think, unless you live in the health departments, to understand what it means to have no computer network available to you. But they are still very, very much under the weather functionally because of the lack of IT. It has not affected all of them to the same degree, but there are a lot of them that are still sort of digging out from that. I anticipate that over the next month or two, that situation is going to improve dramatically, but we're not there yet. And so they are still behind with respect to fiscal operations, operational operations, and May and June at the end of the fiscal year are times when they're going to be scrambling under normal circumstances because it's the end of the state fiscal year. That's going to be even worse this year because of what's happened with the network disruption, the end of emergency COVID funding, and the transition to other things. So realistic, and I know we keep pushing this out a little bit. I do want to point out, Camille, I see your suggestion about that too. I do want to point out that we've recently had conversations with several of the local health departments about the use of Title V funds to support lead activities. They have been anxious to do that, and some of them are doing that. So we are still, and they are still responding to lead case management needs in the local health departments, but they are really under the gun right now. I think it is probably still a heavy lift to get a whole bunch of them to a meeting in the next couple of months.
Okay. So that lessens that stress on that, and we'll let you work that out with our support. And we certainly need to get those IT issues, broadband issues resolved for sure. Paula, does that satisfy you?
It's not really up to me. I'll take it to whatever level you guys want. Just stay in touch with me so I can help coordinate.
Fantastic. So we will get the rock stars of Jeff Fretwell and team and Shantae Branch and team next month. Let's thank you, Department of Insurance, for working with us to bring an update. Ask you to still have that update by June, and hopefully we'll incorporate that in our cross-sector meeting because I think it bears importance. If we can move to agency hot topics, current events, MDE. Anything else that we need to know?
Paul, there are a lot of things going on, and I would just underscore my appreciation for the commission's work on lead in all wet forms, and there's a lot of important discussion happening right now on climate action and clean and renewable energy, and the ambition of the state, both the legislative and the executive branches, and more to follow on that front. But environmental health and environmental justice are key components of it. So I know that the work the commission is doing is going to continue to be instrumental in our success, and more to follow soon. It'll be good to have a discussion after the so-called the dust clears, the smoke clears from the, final days of the legislative session. But I know that MDE and the other agencies focused on environmental health are going to continue to be busy and impactful, and also strive for reduced emissions. And I just feel like a really important component of that is healthy homes and buildings. And there's some dramatic provisions in the Climate Solutions Now legislation that embrace the need for cleaner buildings and communities, and that's not just to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for Maryland to continue to be a leader on climate action. It's also for family, community health. And so, Ruth Ann, as you have been leading the charge from Green and Healthy Homes and everyone else on this commission, we're going to, I know there's unique opportunities for how homes are not only cooled and heated, but ventilated, constructed, and what materials are used for them. And I see a lot of important work, not just in this administration, but in the next administration, whoever the governor is, to follow through on this commission's recommendations and also implement new programs that are, one way or the other, I think are going to be enacted or and supported. So no other specific updates other than I just, I think before we do the briefing in May on water with Jeff Fretwell and our water team, we should get together with you, Ruth Ann, and other commission members about, some of the priority areas. So it's not just an information, here's
Right.
what MDE is saying. It's a real discussion to get input from members of the commission on some very important choices we're going to need to be making to bring in more contractors did not wait for our lead service line our lead service line inventory to be perfect in 2 years, but to be seizing on opportunities for like a lead pipe bounty program to really get more of those lead fixtures out of buildings and homes, given all the federal funding that's coming our way. Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox. Thanks.
No, I could not agree more. And I think as we talk about this intersection, Climate Solutions Now is an important thing for people to understand. There is an awful lot about residential housing that's going to be impacted. Also, Laura Charkoudian and Brian Feldman's bill that's going to direct a couple of things that the commission may find important, which is it is directing investments in low-income families for energy efficiency, but does call in the legislation for standards around toxins, around lead, and others that does cross into this. And the world is becoming much more intersectional about this work. So I think one thing, Mr. Secretary, that our organization will volunteer to do is write some briefs for the commission, and also to have a framing document for the commission that will elicit engagement and input rather than just reports. So I think for these next meetings, and I would also encourage, I'll be happy to talk, Shantae, to do the same with that. So around those pieces, and I know, I'll talk to you offline, Mr. Secretary, of work that GHHI is now doing with the Climate Imperative and Energy Foundation that crosses into some interesting issues, but we're looking at the economic impact of electrification on families, but also decarbonization and the lead and water issues there. Camille, I see that you had your hand up while the secretary was talking, and also Cliff.
Very quickly, and this is me not trying to give myself more work, but this is more for Cliff and I. I will always continue to push and say that since we already have a network of certified community health workers in the state of Maryland, you already have an interested group of people that are interested in health and housing. There has to be a way at some point, and Cliff and I may have to figure this out down the line, that we can engage that group, and it's a large group and getting larger every day on just those particular topics to kind of get the information out. And also, I mean, and be a herald for us. So I just want to always say that, because we pushed it in our department, the other health departments I know pushed it, and it's just, you already have a network already built there. So just wanted to say that.
I want to come back to that, Camille. I don't want to jump the order here, but there is a launch on June 9th. It's going to be hiring about 102 people in its process, and we would love to tap that for a number of the programs here. Cliff, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I figured I'd give my highlight, but I also wanted to respond to something the secretary said, and also think a little bit about where we are as a state. So just to reflect a moment on infrastructure, we think about infrastructure as really the thing that makes public health work, and this is National Public Health Week. So I just want to acknowledge, first of all, the public health workers who are out in the counties, the cities, responding to lead, and to acknowledge the huge amount of work that they do. And then I'm going to say something which I think the commission has not really talked about as much, which is, how does this whole thing work? And it works on two things. It works on effective information management, and it works on people. And unfortunately, the infrastructure of the state with respect, and I'm speaking now for my own department, I really want to recognize the fact that we as a commission need to be aware of the infrastructure that is there to make lead poisoning reduction a reality. And that is the workforce, and it's the information management. I want to commend the secretary because he has been a huge advocate for both of those things. And I'm in a department where obviously IT and information management is at the moment front and center. And the fact that it is at the front and center is reflective, unfortunately, of the state of infrastructure with respect to IT in some of our facilities. So I do think that it's important for the commission to focus not just on the mechanics of lead poisoning, but how it actually effectively gets managed. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that the environmental health workforce and the community health worker and nursing workforce has been challenged in terms of our ability to fill those positions and keep them filled and to support them.
Great, thank you. And Cliff, do you want to mention this weekend as part of your MDH update?
Sure, and I will just say a couple of things about, we mentioned already that Title V is being used to support lead poisoning prevention case management in some of the local health departments. That's the maternal and child health block grant that goes to communities and counties. Secondly, we are continuing to push out and expanding our home visiting program. Third, we are, for National Public Health Week on Saturday, having a panel at the New Carrollton Spring Festival in Prince George's County with Ruth Ann Norton, Dr. Ernest Carter, the health officer of Prince George's County, John Bluey from the Department of Housing and Community Development, and Kathy Attar from the Children's Environmental Health Network to talk about climate, housing, health, and health equity. And so that's a panel that's going to talk about the very things that we've been discussing.
Fantastic, and thank you. And thank you for recognizing National Public Health Week. And I should have done that at the top. The Jack, DHCD, do you have anything else on updates from you?
At the current moment, no. And I just wanted to let you know, Dr. Mitchell, that you'll have a unfortunately, I cannot attend the Health Expo here in New Carrollton on Saturday, but we do have 6 individuals who are also coming along with John Blue to be able to help support throughout that time.
Great.
Thanks, Jack.
Please have application assistance there. Baltimore City Health Department, Mary Beth, Camille.
I'm just going to piggyback on what Cliff said to say that we're hiring. We desperately need sanitarians, community health workers, and unfortunately now that Jerry is leaving me, I have to figure out how to fill those humongous shoes as well. So please check our website, and we want good, dedicated, hardworking people, and I will push that every single meeting. So thank you.
Fantastic. Camille, if you share the links over to us, we will share them as well in the community at every meeting. All righty.
Excuse me, Ruth Ann, I did have a question. I had my hand raised.
Oh, didn't see it. Sorry.
Camille, I just wondered perhaps we don't do, LedTech Services doesn't do the inspector technician course, but however, if you would reach out to the accredited training providers that do offer those courses, aerosol monitoring and Connor Environmental, to have them perhaps in those classes, let it be known that there are those jobs available. I think it's a perfect resource for us to reach out to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. That is great. And then OED and Project Jumpstart to Camille. So we'll share that good piece there. Mary Beth, did you have anything? I'll take that as a no if I don't hear. Or if she's on up, there she went. Okay, Manuel.
I'm sorry, Ruth Ann. I turned on my I tried to unmute myself when in fact I turned off my camera. It looks like.
Okay.
I don't have anything additional for local government. No.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Paul.
Thank you, Ms. Ruthan. We really discussed, it was a great discussion this morning during this Lake Commission meeting, and Secretary Grumble's talking about his mission, healthy homes and buildings, and Dr. Mitchell's housing and children's health. I just want to reiterate that we have children in childcare homes that are run by the owner-occupied buildings. So I would like for us to be thinking of how these buildings can have the required testing, because the MDE do not have that regulation. So something that we want to work requiring buildings that are owner occupied, running the childcare programs to have the requirement for leak testing, and also water testing of the private well water source. We do not have any clear language from MDE. Office of Childcare works through the regulation. We can bring a lot of evidence-based practice into the regulation, but we cannot really mandate anything from the childcare providers if it's not required or if it's not written into the regulation. And we rely on parent organizations such as MDH and MDE. So if we would really are invested in improving the health of the children and improving the homes of these children where they are living or being cared for, we would like for these parent organizations to really look into those regulations and give us the guidance as a regulation so that we could adopt it and we could implement it so that those children will have a healthy home, healthy and clean water to drink and clean air also. Thank you.
Yeah, a wonderful comments. And if you will contact me offline, I think we will help you get both an asset and gap and study done on the childcare needs and what recommendations and how do we fast track at addressing these. We have 2 hands up. Christina, good morning.
Yes, thanks, Ruth Ann. Good morning. I just wanted to echo Manjula's, always our first concern is children's health and safety, but I would like to add to that the childcare providers, the small businesses, would need to have further mandates with these types of requirements would need to have some funding associated, because passing those costs on to parents who are already struggling, we don't want to force them into illegal childcare where there is no regulation. So I think we need to make sure that funding is part of the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that, so I'll make sure we include you in that offline conversation of a potential study here on this and recommendations. I think going into next year's legislature on funding and how these surpluses get used. Childcare is one of the trickiest issues for everybody trying to hire people coming out of COVID. So many issues around childcare and the real need to make sure that we have safe childcare and that it doesn't get left behind. So I will more than happily help to push forward where we can with the commission and where we can with the resources that we have collectively here. If others are interested in joining that kind of work and study group, please email me at ranorton@ghhi.org or reach out to Wendy or Paula, and I'm sure they will let us know on that. And thank you. Shantae, you did have your hand up briefly. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I did have it up briefly, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. I just wanted to say I do agree with Mangela, so that's not a problem. We definitely can have that conversation. But I just wanted to make known that we kind of reference DSD's COMAR regulation. So 13A 15.05.02 kind of has it, laid out in regards to if it's a residential property, what needs to happen. But of course, now that the law has expanded and we're looking at owner occupied, of course, there's a gap there. So I'm more than willing to have a conversation regarding it. But if we put anything to reference DSD is definitely going to have to update their regulations as well.
Fantastic. So we are going to tap that amazing resource that you are for this discussion and to be able to map out solutions. So thank you very much, Shantae. MIA, I know I've asked you to look at the New York Times report and help frame that back to us. Do you have other updates?
No, Ruth Ann, and I will be prepared to address that in June.
Okay, and I will offer you lots of grad students to help if you need to think about that. And I've already told the SOURCE program at Hopkins and Morgan State and others that we're going to need some help with the commission, and I think we'll have some great resources for that. Wes Stewart, Green and Healthy Homes Initiative.
Thanks. Want to make the commission aware that GHHI was awarded a $2 million HUD Healthy Homes production grant. We're going to continue to pursue that integrated holistic model that GHHI, Baltimore City Housing, Maryland Department of Housing Community Development that Jack mentioned in terms of the whole house approach. But this $2 million grant will allow us to do 300 low-income homes in primarily East Baltimore as part of the 1,000-unit East Baltimore project. And we will actually be able to conduct lead hazard reduction, healthy homes around asthma, trigger reduction, injury prevention, radon mitigation, as well as leverage funded weatherization. The goal there is to make homes not only safe, but also more sustainable and more financially stable to help tenants and homeowners remain in properties we've now made safer. So just another great resource, but again, pursuing this model that we're hoping all jurisdictions and all agencies will continue to move towards of the holistic housing approach. So make sure everyone.
So I'm building on that update, Wes. We did get $1 million earmark from the Senate, thanks to Senator Van Hollen and Cardin for supporting that for this work as well. We are going to be formally, and everybody here will probably get an invitation, but we will be formally launching this project with healthcare investment and announcing healthcare investment on June 9th. And we are apparently also doing this in coordination with the Baltimore Ravens because they're with one of our healthcare partners. So sorry for all the Commander fans on the line today, or whatever the Redskins are called these days. But that'll happen on June 9th. I think, Wes, we have an asthma summit coming up as well. And do you have a date for that?
Yes, it's May 11th and 12th, and we'll send that out to everyone.
And that is going to be continue to be virtual this year.
Yes, one more year.
Okay. We are also participating with the APHA as part of National Public Health Week. We have a couple of blogs that'll be coming out on this, one particularly around ending the toxic legacy of lead and the opportunities to do that through both infrastructure support, ARPA, and focus. We are hiring, and I want to put that out there along with everybody else. I think we could run a hiring forum here. We are hiring for 2 asthma health educators to support work that we're doing, as well as we are looking for contractors, certified risk assessors to perform comprehensive health and housing risk assessment, a policy director for Maryland, and for since I have the secretary on the line, we are hiring for a vice president of climate, energy, and equity, and we are looking for the best talent in America for that. While I know that your term is coming to an end, I wasn't saying that for you necessarily, but because that would be a way step down. But I know that you're connected to many of the good things, as are others. And I think there are really good opportunities, and I think there's many evidences of good training ground on the line for the work at GHHI, and it's forward thinking. So I hope people will happily help us do that. Reach out. And Dr. Mitchell.
Yeah, Ruth Ann, I'm going to ask a favor of the commission. We are applying for our 5-year competitive renewal for our environmental public health tracking program, which is our big program that supports the lead program through epidemiology and a number of other things. If the commission doesn't have any objection, I'm going to ask for a letter of recommendation from the chair to support that application.
I make a motion to support your motion. Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
And yes, Camille, I'll be coming to you as well.
If you're opposed, don't say so. I'm just kidding. Everybody's in favor of that for certain, Cliff. And let me go through the hands that are raised. Dr. Rogers, so good to hear from you. How are you?
I am doing fine, thank you. Ruth Ann, I just want to come back briefly to a question you raised at the beginning of the meeting. Who is in charge of the gap analysis?
Well, that's what I was looking for from the MDE or commission side. I know that there was a committee prior, so I will be looking for somebody on the commission other than me to chair that, since that work is done by the staff of GHHI, and we welcome others to be a part of that. But we do want to update it for the department.
Well, I was going to say I'd like to volunteer to help whoever is doing that. If you could keep me informed who's going to be doing that, I'll help out.
Absolutely. So I will ask Kelsey McLean and Justin Berry and Wes from our staff to be in touch with you. And if anyone else would like to join with that, thank you, Paul, as always. Appreciate that.
Yep, certainly. Thank you.
Paula, see your hand up.
Yeah. Hi, the gap analysis was to drive the commission. There wasn't we would create subcommittees based on what we identified in the gap analysis.
Okay. Well, we will revisit that with Paul then, and see if there's opportunity to do that along with the updates, if that makes sense. Paula?
We in the past, what we would do is go over the gap analysis and to see if we were on target for achieving what we identified as action items for the commission during our strategic planning.
Okay. Why don't you and I meet during the intervening and come up with where we are. We'll present that as part of it for the next meeting, and we will also launch the new iteration or updates on the gap analysis of, and everybody here will likely be interviewed for that along with others, if that makes sense, Paul.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else for the good of the order? Okay. Then we are, any other commissioner updates or public updates?
Madam Chair, my hand is raised.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, Shantae, I see you, and Susan Kleinhammer. Yep.
Yes, I just wanted to, I put in the chat, I meant to say MSDE and not DSD. I just wanted to go on record and make that correction. I caught myself after, like, what are you talking about? But sorry, it's been a long morning. I just wanted to.
Oh, I mean, incredible, incredible. Look forward to your presentation next meeting, and we've got a couple of things to follow up on. So thank you very much. Susan Kleinhammer.
Thank you. Just, are we done with department updates, or is that okay? All right, cool.
It's for open comment.
Okay. So I was approached by another training provider who's accredited to offer the abatement courses here in the state of Maryland. And myself too, as an accredited training provider for some of the disciplines, have recognized that things have been changing drastically, especially with New York City going down to 0.5 milligrams per centimeter squared as an abatement action level with the XRF. And, there were some problems with a lot of the XRF, the inspector technicians and risk assessors had oftentimes been using ProTech now owns the LPA1 program. And it actually, a new player came into play, Viken. And what has become, what I found out very early in February of this year is that in response to the New York City lowering down to the 0.5, new PCSs have been created by the manufacturers of the XRFs, and certain changes have been made to those PCSs. And I know that the Maryland Department of the Environment's regulations talk about how lead paint inspections have to follow the most recent PCS. But as a concerned citizen and as also an accredited training provider educator, I think that there are a lot of inspector technicians out there who are not aware of the changes that have occurred to the PCSs of the XRFs that they are using, so that they are using them effectively, efficiently, and correctly. And I'm asking, I'd like it to go on record that I think that the Maryland Department of the Environment needs to basically have a position on how is this information going to be gotten out to the individuals. I know that we sent somebody to a risk assessor course refresher. No mention at all was made of the new changes. And
So,
that concerns me.
Susan, can I ask two things? One, could you please send an email about that and copy me on it, but please send it to Paula and Shantae and Kaylee of this concern. And if we think it's appropriate at the next meeting, because I think, gone under quorum now with people leaving, that we can send a note or a memo over from the commission. I think this is, I would ask that we'll find a place that you can give a sort of a brief education to everybody on what this means, and whether it's something Maryland should or should not consider as well, because I think we need to be looking at the practices there. If we could do that as follow-up to your very good comments.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for taking that, owning that. And if no further objections, do we have a motion to conclude the meeting?
Second motion. I make a motion.
Second.
I second.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Paula. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, see you all next month, and please keep June open as we're going to invite you to a meeting in June. Jack and Sharice, I see, I'm sorry, you have your hands up, and I apologize for missing that. I'm seeing that now.
Oh, that was just to confirm besides the I that I
Okay. And
agreed.
Sharice, did you want to say real quick?
I agree. That was for the I as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.